we are seeing a very, very substantial trend in the US, and that is the increased participation by foreign private issuers. Now, I will tell you, there's a huge distinction on the IPO side from the uplist, cross-list side. And just for those of you that aren't familiar with the terminology, obviously an IPO is a private company that is now taking its first steps to go public and have public shareholders. Uplist and cross-list are terms that we refer to as either a US company that's on a lower trading platform, uplisting to the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange or a senior exchange, and a cross-list is what you would do from Canada or Israel or Asia. If you're traded overseas, coming to the US, sometimes you'll have a dual listing with the OTC, but we'll generally talk about that as a cross-listing opportunity to NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. And what we're seeing, if you look at this slide, you'll see that the increased participation is really at a breakneck speed by foreign private issuers as far as number of deals. The domestic are highlighted in blue, and the foreign private issuers are highlighted in yellow. And you can see, not since 2021, which was the COVID year, which was completely dominated by domestic US issuers. Now, 3 years later, as the market has worked itself out over the NASDAQ pause of 22, the less is more year of 23, and now 24, foreign private issuers have really overtaken the US capital markets. And I don't have this data on here, I have it on my slide, but the number one jurisdiction, this is very surprising to a lot of people, of foreign private issuers, again, companies where they are domiciled, is the Cayman Islands. Everyone must smile at that and say, what's in the Cayman Islands? Well, it's not really the Cayman Islands. You have to dig deeper in the data. Cayman Islands is the jurisdiction of domicile. It's really companies operating over in Asia or other parts of Europe that redomicile for either tax reasons or other synergies in the Cayman Islands, and that becomes the data that we track. But they're generally Asian or other abroad US-based companies. Now, different than the uplist market, which we're going to talk about, where there's more Canadian companies and Canada dominates that market. This is just the IPO market. So I don't know if, I'm sure, Peter, you may have some thoughts on this, but why are we seeing foreign private issuers dominate the US market as far as IPOs? You know, some people have said it's more mature companies, larger companies, bigger revenue. The market is not willing to put up with spec plays or pre-revenue companies these days. I mean, what are you seeing and why do you think? Because you are the foreign private issuer market. That is your market.
Yeah. Well, again, as I said earlier, in Canada, it's a challenge to raise capital. And you know, if you're a certain size here, you become a very big company. A similar sized company in the US is actually a smaller company, and it's a little bit easier sometimes to raise capital. So we're seeing our clients go raise the capital in the US, list in the US, they end up having US shareholders. They need to actually have a US listing. I'm not surprised on the Caymans. We see a lot of people going into tax, free or neutral jurisdictions as a way to list. We also see a lot of, Asian companies, whether it's Chinese or Hong Kong, using that avenue to list. It's a bit more challenging from some of those markets to list directly these days, and so they're choosing to go through other jurisdictions as a way of just make it easier, frankly, to get through some of the stock exchange requirements. I know in Canada, if it's an emerging market, you have a different lens that the stock exchange will use versus a more established place like the Caymans. You'll get less scrutiny. So I think that's one of the reasons.
How come we don't see the Bahamas? Don't Canadians love Bahamas?
They do love the Bahamas. They do.